I think it was the new CEO at DCA talked about AI just allowing us to just be more human. I think the bot to bot conversation we had is super interesting. I think that should be the future. Like, what do we need humans calling like each other, like human to human? Like it's the same information, bot to bot, and let's focus on patient care, patient experience, customer experience. So.
Yeah, I mean, Larry Benz, the CEO of Dental Care Alliance, gave one of the best presentations I've seen in a long time on AI should be used to do mundane tasks to let humans be more human and spend that time with the patients. And this is why, I'm sort of in the thumbs up category, big thumbs up category on this, because it lets humans be more human. It says take this monotonous, mundane task and let the agents do that, and hopefully the people in the practices can then sit with the patients and spend more time being human and spend more time on patient care. Hello, everyone. Brian Kaleo here with my co host, Matt McGaw, and this is the DSO Technology Show. We've got two great guests here. We've got Parag Javari and Amber Day from VoiceCare AI, a company I've been looking at very, very closely over the last year or so, and really excited to have everyone here. So, Parag and Amber, so nice to have you here.
Nice to have us on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian.
Maybe the place to start here to kind of jump right into this is there's a lot of AI solution. There's a lot of telephones and things answering the phone and a lot of things going on. Let's start with the problem that voice care AI is solving. So maybe sort of start there. What is the problem you're solving for, and how do you do it? And then we'll kind of go on from there.
Take that, Brian, and I'll give you kind of the problem we are solving, and Amber, feel free to chime in. The key pain point that we are solving is removing and reducing the administrative burden dental office managers and the DSOs have to go through on a day-to-day basis. To start with, making calls to payers and holding on to these long hold times with payers can be anywhere from 20 to 50 minutes, and completely eliminating that. We are also solving the pain point of accurate information in a very timely manner. And that is very important for the downstream tasks that the office managers have to go through. So that is the most important pain point, reducing the administrative burden, number one, making sure that we deliver very accurate information to the office managers and the DSOs. And the way we do it is using AI and technology.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was right on when it comes to some of the manual tasks, but kind of looking at it from a overview, I would say the direct correlation is more around revenue leakage, right? How do we help support a lot of the holes across revenue cycle and reduce some of the write-offs and drive margin for our DSO? We know that that's a big initiative right now, is really optimizing the locations that they have. M&A has slowed slightly, and so they're looking for ways to optimize across the practices and across the organization. And so looking at revenue cycle and reducing a lot of those leaky buckets across revenue cycle is really one of our core areas that we're trying to solve.
Well, I mean, this is a big pain point, right? Insurance verification, in as much as it can take a lot of human capital traditionally. You would have a human being on the phone calling people, and like you said, I mean, you hope it takes 5 minutes or something, but it could take 20 or 30 or 40 minutes, and you've tied that human being up for, a big chunk of time, and that human being, one, is probably not pleased to have to spend their time doing that, and two, they're tied up and unable to do other, tasks within the office or within the DSO while this is all going on. But you found a way, Parag, to sort of automate this process so it allows the human being to not have to do this, to do other things and focus on other things, and it sort of automates this. How many phone calls a day can you do like this?
Excellent question, Brian. We can do anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 calls per day. As of today, we are doing a few thousand calls a day and using not only phone calls, but using different modalities as well, which we'll get into.
Matt, what do you think of this?
I think it's amazing. I think the freeing up part is an interesting part of this. it's not necessarily like you're ripping out jobs. I think you're replacing with humans being able to do things that are more productive with their time. And I'm curious, Parag, I think you told me a story that I think should be more mainstream. A couple of years ago when we first met, like we get a lot of questions around, are these companies, do they have clarity around dental workflows and how dental offices work? Can you tell a story that you told me a couple of years back, if you're comfortable, about how you even got into this and how many calls you made and what your plan was to execute?
Matt, thanks for bringing that up. This was about 2 or 3 years ago when I was literally walking into a dental office. And as soon as I was about to walk in, Jennifer is the office manager. She still is. She opens the door in a very hurriedly fashion and tells Parag, have a seat. And I'm like, why is Jennifer so curt today? She's a very warm and friendly woman. I take my seat waiting for my turn. And when my turn came with the doctor, I asked, what is Jennifer doing on this phone? Doctor was very frustrated and says, verifying insurance, calling for claim status and appeals. And then he shows me a stack of paper-based files that I thought was patient records, but actually those stack of paper-based files were claims that he could not process quickly because he could not hire great people like Jennifer. And then it kind of dawned on me, why in this day and age are we even making phone calls to begin it with? Shouldn't phone calls be replaced with an API-based call? And so as I dug deeper, it seems like most or almost all dental offices and medical practices have the exact same problem. And in order to build a great product and understand the nuances and the subtleties, I partnered with that same provider, sat at their office for about 9 to 12 months. I was making calls to payers, about 25 to 35 calls per day, and Matt and Brian, to be frank with you, that was the most painful part of making, collecting that proprietary data and making these calls. I distinctly remember one time I had to hold on to the call for 53 minutes. And I was like so fed up of it, I literally hung up. And so I understood what happens in all of these phone calls from beginning till the end, not only the happy path cases, but what are the edge cases when a payer may hang up, or what are these very fine subtleties, how they transfer to multiple departments, and all of those things became the foundation layer of voice care at Joy. It was a painful but needed lesson.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very, very, very difficult pain point, Prague, for a lot of practices I've noticed. And, it cuts into overhead if you have to have a lot of people do it. It cuts into the culture and job satisfaction. And also, it, comes down to, maybe accuracy or error. If you're making all these calls, you can't expect a human being to get it correct all the time. But how have you solved for this? I mean, one question that I had is, are the insurance or the payers willing to talk to AI agents?
I think it's a great question, Brian, you ask. And initially, what had happened, the insurance companies were very open to talking to AI agents. When I say initially, about last year and year before last, they weren't inundated with that many AI agent calls. Or with the last year and this year, now a lot of companies that don't have high quality AI agents are calling. Now insurance companies are inundated with that. So as a result, insurance companies are very selective and also, I want to say, filtering AI calls now. So they've become more stricter. Some insurance companies are not, but many are. And the way we are solving that problem right now is a lot of what has happened after hearing how Joy can talk. Some insurance companies have approached us in partnering with us to be the other side of to represent them. So we're solving that problem that way. But from a provider side, we are also now offering multiple modalities to get the same information. So now VoiceCare is probably the only company that can ping an API, go to the payer portal, make the call, and send and receive fax if needed, all in one synchronized workflow with these agents working behind the scenes. So we make the phone call as and when needed if we cannot get information from some of those other modalities.
Okay. And, you do have a human element to this, if I remember correctly, meaning if, somehow a company won't deal with, the agent, you do have a human being that can assist?
Yes, absolutely. We do have human in the loop. There are calls that do get complex, that Joy cannot handle it, and the human in the loop takes over when a situation like that arises.
How much of that earlier experience from sitting behind the desk, making the calls, went into the way you train the model?
I would say more than 90 to 95% of it. There's so many great models out there nowadays, both LLMs and SLMs, small language models. So we intentionally chose models that can be trained using our data, such as small language models. And we took all the conversations that can happen for insurance verification for dental. We created multiple templates and versions on different kind of edge cases. So there's happy path cases, there's edge cases where the conversation can steer. And now that has become truly the foundation to the point. Now we can also simulate a payer conversation before making the payer call. And so that it's a simulation that we use internally. We can make X number of calls internally, just like we were making a call to Aetna before actually making the real Aetna call. So it did serve a lot of the foundational aspects of it.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense. But tell me, so there might be a chance here that you'll be assisting the payers. So what Joy will have, a counterpart to talk to on each end. Is that what you're suggesting? I mean, that sounds really interesting to me.
Yeah, it may not be called Joy. It might be called something else.
Right.
But we are already seeing right now, Brian, on a daily basis, Joy does talk to often some AI agent on the other side. Either the IVR piece of it is quite automated and then connects to not a so sophisticated version of Joy. A good version of it we are already seeing on a daily basis. And the way we see in the future, a lot of this information, exchange of data and information is going to happen through APIs rather than even a phone call may only be needed on a very special circumstance or very complex circumstance that we cannot get through some other means.
And let me ask this: how quick would it be if Joy had, another agent to talk to, on the other end? How much, how quick could they get what they need from each other and be done with it?
I would say on an average, humans with the whole time calls about 30-32 minutes. That is including the whole time, including navigating the IVR. Two agents talking to each other, that could come down, including whole time, to about 15 to 20 minutes. And so you would shave off easily one third to potentially 50% of the time of two agents talking to each other.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing, and I guess we're still at the point where they have to make a traditional phone call to each other. One would call the other, and there would be two agents talking, but it would still be on the phone. I mean, I'm just wondering, fascinating, if someday they'll be able just to interface with each other without the formality of the phone call and get everything they need.
100%. You're right on the money.
Joy and bliss talking to each other.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess because it's set up for, a human being could call and use the agent on both ends, but someday we may have it where they have their own portal and they can just go in. It would seem to me they could have this information in seconds then if they were able to do something like that.
Maybe Amber, you can answer this. Are insurance companies changing the way that they have these conversations to combat the AI agents currently? Are you running into any customers that are seeing that? Because Parag said that you were able to like mirror like what a payer call looks like, but are they changing to try and like play games with the AI agents?
Yeah, good question. I think it's just more payer restrictions, right? They're always going to make it a little bit more challenging. That's how they make their money, right? Is to make it a little bit challenging. And so we do run across certain kind of challenges with certain payers that we've had to navigate and really work across. One we come across often is, we work with a lot of oral surgeons and they have multiple code level coverage, and most payers will say, hey, you can only get 5 codes on this call. And so if I'm calling to get 30 codes for this oral surgeon, that makes it a little bit challenging, right? And that's where that multimodal comes into play. But also, how do we overcome that? And, if it's 15 codes, then maybe I make 3 calls and I merge and collate that data and deliver it to the provider. So it's concise and gives them all the information that they need. But we're going to continuously come across some of these payer restrictions as they want to make it challenging. So I feel like every 6 months there's another surprise with this payer, and now they're going to put up this restriction. And so I think it's more navigating those issues for the providers. And as soon as we come across them, we're able to kind of figure out a way to overcome that restriction. And so we're kind of staying ahead of those type of things when it comes to the providers, instead of them coming across things and then having to figure it out themselves. We've already kind of got that foresight as well.
Well, I mean, it's fascinating to me. I mean, one question I have for Amber or Parag is, I mean, do the providers want this? I mean, I'm confused by I mean, I'm not confused with what you're doing and why it's great. I'm confused with what is the provider's position on this? Certainly for the dental office, it's great to be able to automate this and not have human beings doing that. I think it's probably better for the patients too, because now human beings can be focused on doing human things and bedside manner and helping patients and not be tied up with those type of tasks. Parag, you referenced that employee that's usually very, very nice was maybe not in a great mood that day because she had to do this. So I think it's definitely better for the patient experience. It's definitely better for, the office. But I guess what I'm curious about when I hear about these restrictions is, do the payers want this, or do they want to obstruct it further and, and make you have to have human beings get on the phone for this?
I think you raise a great point, Brian. What we are experiencing, because payers now, if you think about it from a fundamental standpoint, call centers and operations around call centers is a huge cost center to the payers. One of the largest payers in the US has armies of people, like 20 to 40,000 people all around US, and if the cost is very large. And because they're getting now, AI is able to make like, for example, Joy can make anywhere between 50 to 100 to 250 calls an hour and more, and they're receiving so many calls, they don't have that much human capacity to manage all these calls, if you think about it. And so now what payers are coming to us, working with a few, that essentially they're saying, hey, use some of our other products, some of your calls can reduce to us. So payers are also opening up, I would say, some of them to provide this information in a slightly more transparent way. And I think it's going to change the industry for good. It is slowly and steadily moving in that direction. Maybe not as fast as we would like, but it is moving in that direction where payers are opening up some of their data sources.
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on it exactly. They're moving fast too. If the technology's there and primed to help with optimization and, more important, bottom line, we can expect that the payers are going to play in the same field as the providers. And I don't think it's too far off that we'll definitely have bot to bot, right? Exchanging that information, and we never kind of touch that process.
Well, that's the answer, Amber. I mean, I don't know, like, just because we know the answer, it's going to take maybe time for it all to happen. But to me, the answer is bot to bot is going to be the answer here. That way, the payers can have just as many calls per hour as we can, and everything would be synchronized with each other. But it's a real interesting point. If they're not set up that way and a lot of people start making these calls, does that just slow everything down a little bit?
Yeah, and I think it's also important to consider the goals and the initiatives on each side, right? The DSOs that I'm working with, they're not trying to reduce headcount, right? They're already low on headcount when it comes to revenue cycle, so they just want their team to work more efficient and move faster, right? The payers probably have a little more different of a mindset. If we have 40,000 people in a call center, how can we reduce that down to 10,000, right? And so it's a different initiative as far as how we can utilize the technology, and that's one thing I love about DSOs is the culture and the team is so great, and it's also a huge problem we see. Staffing issues is real in DSOs, and so how can we help those team members stay on board, be more happy and in their roles and their positions? And I think a lot of that comes down to reducing some of these like annoying tasks we have to do across revenue cycle, like calling a payer and waiting on hold for 40 minutes, you know.
So, Parag, this is I mean, just to understand it, this is a SaaS-based product. I mean, if a DSO or a group practice wanted this is a SaaS-based product.
That is absolutely correct. It is a SaaS-based product.
And they would sign up and they would pay a monthly fee, and you would be able to, for the most part, automate insurance verifications for their organization.
Yes, we would 100% automate the entire insurance verification.
And then what happens because the humans aren't making the call? They would get a report, or, if you've got a particular patient, you want to verify insurance. When the agent makes the call, what happens after the call? It transmits the verification in a report, or what happens then?
Yeah, they can make in a batch that we call hundreds of calls in a batch, and they get a report in a PDF format and an Excel format. And we can also write it back to multiple PMs that we've integrated with, like Open Dental, Dentrix, Ascend, Denicon, and a few others. We can write back directly to their PM as well.
Okay, okay. And then they would understand what the patient's status is when they get that report or that spreadsheet.
Exactly. They can collect the payment from the patient. They know the right amount to collect the copay or the co-insurance at the time of service, and we give them the entire coverage for that particular patient. So if they had to plan multiple treatments for a particular patient for the year, they could plan it at the first or second visit and would not have to verify the insurance the second time.
I guess they would get sort of all of that information there at that time, and they would be able to figure out what the coverage is and what the copay is that they're supposed to collect. I mean, I think that's a real outstanding development. Matt?
Well, you normally ask this question, Brian. I give you a hard time about it. The compliance side of things, you being the attorney, like I'm curious about the compliance,
Well,
the
I had a
safety.
compliance and an integration question. That's right. Maybe,
Okay.
Matt, we can take both of those.
Yeah.
Does this comply with HIPAA, and are there any issues there? And then also talk about integration, because that's really big with technology now.
Yeah, I mean, I think security is the most important piece when you're touching PHI, right? And with what we do, we're touching so much different PHI that we have to make that kind of the utmost importance of what we do when we bring to market. And so we're unique in the fact that we actually do multiple penetration testings throughout the year. I think we're at 4 per year. We also are HIPAA compliant, SOC 2, Type 2 certified, and we are built on a high trust platform. And so when we think of utilizing and helping these practices, that's always kind of our North Star is, right, how do we keep the data secure? We are touching so much PHI and making sure that they feel confident utilizing our technology, that their stuff is going to be secure and their patient information is going to be secure. So that's something I always highlight when I'm talking with our partners. Some people kind of peruse past it, but it's really should be your North Star when you're building out a technology like this.
And just to build upon that, Brian and Matt, we went through a very rigorous security and compliance process with Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic started as a strategic partner of VoiceCare, and they used an outside company that is well known in this area called OneTrust. And OneTrust did diligence on our entire system and signed off, and which eventually that was one piece that led Mayo to actually invest in the company. So it's important because Mayo does not take it lightly, and we go through Mayo's rigorous process every year. So it's a once a year we go through their process in addition to ours. In terms of Brian, you were touching on integrations. I think when we met the very first time, you had mentioned very distinctly integrations is the key, Parag, that you got to focus and unlock. I took that advice to heart, and we focused on it. And so now we are integrated with quite a few PMs. To start with, Open Dental, and these are deep integrations, directly native integrations, where as an example, Open Dental, we can read and write data directly in the coverage tables. In Denicon as well, with Cloud9, we're also integrated with CareStack, and then Dentrix Asset. And then there are a few more, 3 or 4 more that is in the pipeline that will be integrated by year end. So we'll be integrated with about 8 to 10 of practice management systems in the dental space that would cover more than, I would say, 80% of the market.
Yeah, I think that's very, very important. And I remember we talked, I think it was a couple of years ago, and at that time I had learned, just from my research and being involved in dental technology companies, that really integration is one of the most important indicators of whether a practice is going to be able to use it or not, or its DSO is going to be able to use the technology or not, no matter how good the technology is. So, and I know you've made great progress there, and I appreciate your clarifying all that. So, all right, well, listen, this is the moment of truth, Amber and Parag, that everybody gets a little worried about. This is the important time here. Matt, are you going to give this a thumbs up or thumbs down, this technology?
Definitely a thumbs up. I do have a question on that question, Brian, for them.
Yes.
I've been hearing a lot, Parag and Amber, about DSOs out there trying to build internal tools. And I wanted to get your take since you're here. I always like to ask AI founders and early employees. It's kind of a part of the thumbs up process here, because I think everybody feels like they're Steve Jobs, you mean myself included. Like, I feel like I can go on Claude and build so much stuff, right? But I think the security and the compliance side of it, the maintenance, maybe you can answer Brian's question about the thumbs up with maybe some clarity on where people should spend their time potentially working on their own tools and where you guys fit in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a great topic. Across healthcare in general, it's a topic of discussion, build or buy, right? And the technology is moving so fast that every day there's something new that we can do. And so I think if you're building on something right now, you're probably a little bit early, because in 6 months it's going to be changed differently, right? But the most important piece is the security and compliance, right? Is maintaining that, managing that, and controlling that. And so I think I encourage people to build, but I think it needs to be across the right use cases, right? When it comes to payers and insurances and PHI, there's a lot of nuances that comes into that that you have to kind of work around. When you think of like maybe patient-facing use cases, let's say recall, or I'm calling because you're overdue for your treatment, that use case is a little bit more straightforward, right? There's not any sort of rules or restrictions, and so identifying use cases that are maybe a little bit easier for you to initiate and not have to continue to reiterate, right? When it comes to payers and security and compliance, I mean, it would be a tough one to build out for a DSO, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's a big thumbs up for me. I
I
like
would
the
agree.
technology. I think you're solving an important problem. I think you're giving a better overall patient experience because the staff can spend more time with the patients, better overall culture because the staff don't have to spend time on these phone calls. I just, it's an interesting choice, like that Matt says. I think if you're set up and you have this, I think you could be a potentially great option. But Matt's right, different people or different organizations are looking at different solutions for this.
And I think, Brian, to the point that I think it was the new CEO at DCA talked about AI, just allowing us to just be more human. I think the bot-to-bot conversation we had is super interesting. I think that should be the future. Like, what do we need humans calling? Like each other, like human, like it's the same information, bot to bot, and let's focus on patient care, patient experience, customer experience. So, love what you guys are doing. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I mean, Larry Benz, the CEO of Dental Care Alliance, gave one of the best presentations I've seen in a long time on AI should be used to do mundane tasks to let humans be more human and spend that time with the patients. And this is why, I'm sort of in the thumbs up category, big thumbs up category on this, because it lets humans be more human. It says take this monotonous, mundane task and let the agents do that, and hopefully the people in the practices can then sit with the patients and spend more time being human and spend more time on patient care. So for that, this really solves, I think, a really important problem.
Yeah, and I think it's an important piece is, looking at the task and going, okay, the tasks and removing the humans from it is all great, but it's also really important when you look at the data, right? What is the accuracy of what you're running today with the human labor, right? There's always human error when it comes to like writing down things, putting it in the practice management software, and across revenue cycle, we're not just doing that in verifications, we're doing it on claims, we're doing it on claims denials, and so all of these stopping points is really kind of what's creating an amount of error across revenue cycle. And so it's important to consider that the accuracy rate is really kind of one of the most things that we are really proud of. I actually have a DSO client that has 29 locations, and we just did an entire business review for them, and their accuracy rate on their insurance verification is 99.7%, which is incredible for them, especially when you think of less denials that are going to be coming down, less things they have to appeal, less work across some of those mundane tasks because the accuracy is so pinned up.
Well, look, we're just about out of time here, but this was a really great discussion. Let me just ask you this. If somebody's interested in VoiceCare AI and they want to get more information or set up a call, just how could they do that?
Yeah, I would say go to our website, voicecare.ai. We have a lot of information on there. You can also get in touch with Parag or myself. I'm sure that you guys will maybe send out some information as far as an email, but super simple, Amber at voicecare.ai and Parag at voicecare.ai. We're always willing to chat with people and see where you're at and help you answer some questions and really kind of clarify the best path for you in your organization.
Well, this was a great discussion. I loved having the two of you, Amber and Parag, here, and we're expecting great things from VoiceCare AI in the future, and thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Matt.
Brian and Matt, for hosting. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.